Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, back to talk more X-Men. And this week we have House of X number 5, just came out today. And fortunately, my copies that I ordered for my subscription service didn't come today. And so I go online, and Thinking Critical's got his review up, and of course Rob Jefferson's got his review up, and I can't even watch them because I haven't been able to read it, and I can't make my review until I get it either. So I made a special trip all the way to Graham Cracker Comics in DeKalb to pick up an issue of my own. Like, I've got like 4 coming tomorrow, like with different variants, but I found the Magic Decades, Character Decades, Over the Decades variant, and I got to read House of X number 5, and now I can watch everybody else's reviews. But holy crap, again, a lot of stuff going on. A lot of crazy stuff, and some stuff that we were all kind of figuring. So full spoilers if you have not read this issue, because I'm going to spoil everything. So I love that just how this starts with Professor X's line, do you want to know the real difference between them and us? Until now, we were never given a chance. And throughout this issue, you can see the mutants becoming a full-on unit of, when they say, all mutants for like basically like the Three Musketeers, like all for one, one for all. Well, that's what's happening here and now, including the bad guys, or people that have been like Apocalypse, a danger to all mankind and mutant kind. And I saw one article talking about how the mutants are kind of behaving like a cult. But here's the thing, and I know that this is all going to get crazy, even more crazy after this series is over. Because of course things aren't just going to go, things aren't going to just get resolved. There's going to be more problems. There's going to be huge things that come out of this. But we've been having the X-Men and mutants in the Marvel Universe have just had it so rough. Like, think about all the mutants that were killed in Genosha, and just over the years in the books, how many have been killed, and just getting stomped on by humanity, and infighting amongst themselves, all this stuff that I kind of I don't really know if I would say what they're doing is called a cult. It's finally, they figured out, for now, how to make things work for themselves for a change. And in this issue, we get to know, well, we start off with Magneto talking to Lorna Dane and talking about how the only thing that society taught mutants was society, the idea of society. And we are introduced to the 5 that are right here. And they are comprised of Hope Summers, Proteus, Fabian, Pablo Medina, okay, they got it written down here in another thing here. So we're just going to get to it. We just got to find out. Okay, so Fabio Medina, okay, so he's capable, so those eggs that we saw, right? He can make an unlimited amount of these unviable biological eggs, which, what's great about this, what they talk about this, is that these 5 mutants, while they all have great powers, they're kind of, until you put them together for this grander purpose, it's really, they would never probably hit their full potential, kind of like an Apocalypse kind of way to look at it. Kevin McTaggart as Proteus, his power is capable of warping reality and transforming an unviable egg into a viable one. Proteus, this was really interesting. I guess Proteus was just in the last run of Astonishing X-Men, where we were introduced to the new version of Charles Xavier. He just called himself X. And so I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, and I still, when everybody's saying who's underneath that mask of Cerebro, Well, there's all sorts of like I'm probably wrong, but I still think there's a chance that this is the new version of Charles, the one who's, you know, if we think about all the different lives that he's lived, or the way that Moira has come to him over the years, I don't know. It just, I still think that it's Charles Xavier, but I mean, you know, I don't know. Like, everything is brought into question here. But then you have Joshua Foley, who's Elixir, who's mutant capable of biologically kickstarting the process of life, initializing cell replication and husk growth. So basically, he can make the egg, you know, grow, what's inside them grow. Eva Bell, known as Tempest, is a mutant capable of temporarily maturing a husk to a desired age. So that means that you don't have to wait for something to be fully grown. She uses her powers and you become fully grown. And then, of course, Hope Summers, who's mutant capable of enhancing and synergizing the others' resurrection mutants' powers to ensure the success of each resurrection. So using her, she like can put all the other four together to make this whole process work. So that when a bunch of mutant dies, or let's say a whole bunch of mutants, like from House of X number 4, die, those pods can be injected with the genetic material that Sinister had of each mutant. So, you know, Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, Mystique, Archangel, Husk, everybody that died on that mission can now come back. And they do, and that takes us back to an earlier issue. In fact, wasn't it? I think it might have even been issue number 1, where they come out of the pods and Charles is like, "To me, my X-Men." And some people say this is creepy or whatever. I just think it's amazing. And then you go, well, if they're just a husk, how do they become themselves again? And then we get to this power of Cerebro that not only can find mutants, can basically put their souls back into their body. And all their memories and everything that they were and are, everything that they've experienced up until their death, I would assume, is put back. And that's freaking crazy. Like, really, really crazy. So we get kind of this whole reintroduction to the characters that were gone. We get these great visuals of the tree and the pods and everything, like there was in issue number 1, where he says, you know, like, "To me, my X-Men." And we get the tree of everything. And I just love, like, Charles's here's one thing that maybe is interesting, is the way Charles stands and moves. If anything, that might be something to think about. And then we show, like, Storm is reintroducing everybody. And this is where I guess maybe people could say it's like they're being like a cult. But really what they're doing is being proud of who they are and what they've done and what they've finally been able to accomplish. They're not saying anti-human. They're standing together, in my opinion. It means, you know, like, sure, humans have been kicking them around long enough. Why shouldn't they be able to stand and protect themselves from everybody? And I think it's amazing. And I know it's more complicated than that, but I look at this and they do this. Like, I love this picture of all of them standing there, coming out of their pods. Of course, everybody's naked and stuff. And then we get Charles and Magneto talking about how many people have been killed and how they could bring, so they bring up the idea of being able to bring back everyone who's ever died that's a mutant. That's one thing that's going on. And then we got the Security Council at the United Nations to basically say, are they a sovereign nation? And we know that a whole bunch of little things that have to do with, like, Emma Frost and Sabretooth and that have been going on to get things to go in their favor. And again, like, in a normal book, you know, you'd see, oh, nothing works right, nothing ever works. And again, it's short-term progress, but I mean, things are going to go south. They always do. It's a comic book. But right now, I'm just relishing in the fact that for a brief moment here, we've got everybody getting what they want. Now Hickman writes this, again, like these great manuals about resurrection. And it goes into detail about what Mr. Sinister had, or has. And basically, without this, we'd have nothing. Then there's a note. This library, which began as solely biological samples, has now been converted to holographic sequencing. And while all current mutant modifications have been limited to optimal age... Alright, hey everybody, sorry about that. My camera still freezes the entire system and shuts down, and I can't even get it to turn off unless I continually pause and unpause now. And so when I get into a rhythm and I forget to turn it off, it completely screws everything up. So I know if it's been a second for you guys, but it's been like 10 minutes waiting for this thing to reboot. So we get back into this resurrection that he's written down here. And there's a note saying, while it has not yet been tested, it's believed that upgrades, extensions, stand-ins could be assisted by mutants such as Sync or Mimic. So shapeshifters, right, could also help out this thing. And also, they talk about Proteus, which is an interesting thing because I was wondering if they were going to talk about that. And it says the Proteus problem, because where the powers of this mutant are directly associated with the destruction of its own body, right? So Proteus, like, he's Moira's kid, right? So whenever he uses it, though, his whole body just becomes energy. There's nothing left. And so because of his powers, it's the direct destruction of its own body and are the direct cause of all physiological and psychological deviance over the years. So it's part of the problem that he goes crazy is because he's kind of loses, he loses himself, literally. Has been solved by always having a backup mutant husk prepared for Proteus to inhabit when he burns out his old one. Depending on the frequency with which he is using his power, a Proteus body normally lasts 1 week, but can last as little as 1 day during periods of excessive power use. Proteus backup mutant husk is always created from the genetic base of Charles Xavier. So Xavier's body is being used as a husk, like replacement bodies for Proteus. Now that's interesting, because that is definitely something that could come and bite them in the butt. The mind. Now we have to talk about that. A backup of every mutant mind on the planet exists. Once a week, Charles Xavier copies the latest version of every mutant mind to multiple redundant cradles located in several locations across the world. These backups are the essence of each mutant. How they think, how they feel, their memories, their very being. When a mutant husk is ready, Charles Xavier injects this backup of who they are in capital letters into their husk capital letters, and that mutant is reborn. Note, there has been no experimentation regarding what happens when you combine a mutant mind with a husk that is not their own. So basically somebody could be running around in somebody else's body but with a different mind. Now, could that be what people are thinking about with Charles? That somebody's running around in his body but with somebody else's mind in it. And even if it's not, the potential for other characters to not really be who they say they are is a very different take on like the whole secret invasion type storyline. And I think it's great. Oh, there's also a moment where they talk about, and I'm going to pause it till I better make this quick because this thing just keeps shutting down on me. In the end, so there's lots of questions. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about still, but they talk about how the 5 mutants that make this work, you know, are basically like one being. They never leave each other's side. They basically just become like one group, one person almost in what they do. We also have a lot of stuff about how long it takes to make mutants. Also about how they're not going to like make have a husk be turned into somebody until they know they're dead, or you know, confirmed dead. Like they need to see the body, or Cerebro needs to be able to find them, and if they can't, then they'll do what they have to do. But we find out Emma Frost has been doing her little work here, making sure that this goes through. Charles has a few words to say to her that are very kind, and it's very weird, but we also find out like who's who and who didn't like become a part of it. And it's like Iran, Madripoor, North Korea, Latveria, Russia, Brazil. Like it's in Wakanda. Wakanda doesn't need their drugs. I love that it says that like right in the red there. Damn it. It's like Wakanda doesn't need drugs. Latveria, doom. Madripoor, that place would never accept anything. But you know, like Iran and North Korea and Russia, of course. So, like, whether it's ideological or political, some of these places haven't accepted it. Now we get this great moment where Wolverine is asked, you know, he's asking Charles Xavier, you know, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing what you're about to do? I love that picture of Wolverine with the in front of the like Krakoan like teleporters. And I like what he says, Chuck, I gotta tell you, when you talk like that, I kind of want to beat you to death. Some people are beyond saving. And with that, all the villains begin coming out of the teleporter, including Apocalypse. Wish I had a better way to do this. And, damn. Essentially, Apocalypse gives in to what they're doing, or so we think. And we get this picture. Seriously. What is wrong with me in perspective? With Xavier shaking hands with Apocalypse. Welcome home. And then it says, from Magneto, if you were us, then be with us, come home. Crazy, 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 crazy things setting up for what's going to happen after this book series is over. I'm going to cut this short now because of all the problems I'm having with my camera. But another amazing issue by Hickman. Keep changing the game every issue. We learn and get new things. The world building is some of the best world building I've ever seen in my